Kevin Haugen.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon. Welcome into today's Community Comment. Again, I am your host, Kevin Haugen. It's my pleasure to welcome into our Daily Dodge TV studio this afternoon and to talk about a program that is looking to get volunteers and people to sign up and help out with this new venture that's underway here with the Board on Aging and Long-Term Care. Excuse me, I finally got that right. If I can read my own handwriting. We have with us this afternoon today on Community Comment, Assisted Living Project Lead Kim Verstegen. And again, I hope I said that right as well. Fantastic.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Kim, for joining us here today on Community Comment.
Perfect.
I know that there's some things that we want to hit off right on the bat here on the program, so I will turn the mic over to you, and we can share that information with our listeners and viewers.
We'll do our housekeeping.
Okay, yes.
So, as we begin our interview, Kevin, I'd like to explain that the State of Wisconsin Board on Aging and Long-Term Care is a state agency that does not endorse or promote commercial products, services, or providers. As a state agency, it is important for our listeners to understand that we act independently and represent consumers aged 60 years and older in supporting resident rights and do not make endorsements for any private companies that serve Wisconsin's older adult population. This is a state agency, so we just want to make that clear. We're a non-biased agency.
Yeah. Is it based in Madison? Is that sort of
Well,
where
our home office is, but we are all in
Sure,
72
correct.
counties throughout the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, and we'll dive into what counties the program covers and how many people are helped out by the agency that you are representing here today on a Community Comment. But Kim, I want to dive in first here, just talking about you and your role and what you're doing with a Board on Aging and Long-Term Care.
Well, first of all, I know you had asked me earlier how long I had worked for the agency, and I've been in the agency since 2012, and I was a volunteer coordinator for the skilled nursing facilities, and I covered Winnebago, Outagamie, Door County, Manitowoc, Calumet, Brown counties. Those were my counties, and so I'm always recruiting volunteers in those areas, and we supported residents in resident rights through volunteers into skilled nursing facilities. And now at this point, last year, 2023, we are going to expand that. We did an expansion project for the state of Wisconsin Board on Aging and Long-Term Care, and working with assisted livings, recruiting volunteers to go into assisted living communities. With the growth of our assisted living communities everywhere, it's nice if we can have some advocacy support through volunteering.
Yeah, I know it's a field that is in desperate need of influx of people to come in and check on the people that are at these facilities and help out in any capacity. And we'll again talk more details about how to get involved with that in just a moment. But Kim, I also want to ask: is this something that you've always had a passion for or an interest in?
You must see it. You must see it in me.
Yes,
because
yes.
I've been in the volunteer management field right from my career.
Yeah.
This is a career. And I've started in right out of college in 1982. Always worked with the elderly, always worked in the senior service agency, always worked with people with special needs of some sort, from all the way from children to now currently into the older adult world. So.
Yeah. What has really stood out to you in terms of how things have changed over all this time? I know that the way things are done nowadays are not the same that they were done 10, 15 years ago.
Like I said, the expansion of assisted living communities, we didn't have them, 10, 15 years ago. They were just starting to develop. But of course, it's going to be lack of staffing. We just don't have the people anymore that will, and the older population is growing rapidly. I think I've heard the last quote was 11,000 people are turning 65 a day. So people's healthy aging is very important, but people are becoming more ill, and so they are choosing assisted living communities.
And you mentioned the biggest gap that needs to be covered is staffing right now. That's one of the big things that we're here to talk about today is getting volunteers and people interested in helping out to get involved.
So we don't replace the staff.
Correct.
The staff
It's
is
in
always
support
there.
of.
This is a support for our agency. We're an advocacy agency, so we're separate from the staffing, but we are there for residents and their rights and making sure that those are adhered to by the facility and because they're busy people, the folks that work in these facilities. So if we do detect a situation or a resident has a complaint or a situation that they would like corrected, and there's a volunteer that shows up at that nursing facility once a week, it's once a week for a couple hours, they can always trust the fact that they can tell that volunteer, we can report it back, and we can help to solve their issues.
I have a family member who works has been to a couple of different facilities now, but has worked extensively for the last 5-10 years at assisted living facilities, and just the needing to get help and people in there to even just talk and be around for these people who need this type of care is just so important. Sometimes people,
Loneliness.
correct,
Loneliness.
people hit buttons and need some help, and they're waiting 2, 3, 4 hours sometimes to get a response.
Clarifying, we don't do that.
Correct.
But-
You're not into to
But we
respond
can report.
medical.
We can
Correct.
report. We can say that resident was sitting. They can complain to our volunteer and say they sat for 10 minutes or 20 minutes. Most of the time, it's like 45 minutes.
I'm sure having as many hands and eyes there as
Right, ears
possible
and
to
eyes
help.
for our regional
Correct.
ombudsman. Yes.
Fantastic. Now let's talk about this assisted living volunteer advocate program. Again, we sort of have been born out of a need for more support at these assisted living facilities, but just talk about the program in and of itself, Kevin.
So, like I said, we're heading into our second year. So I go things like this where I'm doing my marketing and I'm trying to recruit the volunteers, but I'm also letting the community know about the agency programs. We have a Medigap helpline, and we have the resident rights regional ombudsman. So I have their numbers, and I'll give that too at the end of our program so that everybody, our listeners, can be aware of that. But the project position is, and we're in Winnebago County, Outagamie County, Dodge, and Fond du Lac County. So that's where the expansion started. We are now developing other counties within our state agencies to continue to expand into our assisted living communities, recruiting volunteers. So we cover 72 counties in the state of Wisconsin, and I have 5 other colleagues as volunteer coordinators. So we're all starting to develop that avenue into our assisted livings as this has gotten expanded.
How does a facility get in do they reach out and say, hey, we would like, how does that process work?
Sometimes they do, but
Yeah.
they're just starting to learn. Our assisted living communities are starting to learn that there is a volunteer advocacy. Our skilled nursing facilities, we were there for 30 years, and so we've been there. They're familiar with first of all, everybody knows what the ombudsman program is in long-term care, but the volunteer component, people weren't always so aware. So in my 32, or in my counties that with my volunteers, opening up the door, the relationship that is starting to develop is always amazing. It's so humbling to see these people from our community that come out and do this once a week as a volunteer, but then how our administrators and our facility staff are starting to see what an advantage it is to have a volunteer. It helps. It's very helpful.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a two-way street that
Right.
supports what they do, and then having them come in there to be able to assist those
Yes.
who are living there.
And we're
help
not
out.
mandatory reporters. We
Yep.
don't do we're not looking for problems. We're there for advocacy, resident rights advocacy. We're there for the resident and the advocacy.
Yeah, is there meetings, or how do people, if they hear about this program and say, hey, this is something that is a calling to my heart, I want to get involved with this, what do they need to do to be able to get involved and sign up, or what's that process
First
involved?
of all, they can go to our website, which is longtermcare.wisconsin.gov or longtermcare.wi.gov. So you can always go to our website and learn about what the Board on Aging Long-Term Care is. But our telephone number, if you want to go directly through the phone line, is 1-800-815-0015. So that's one way, and that is also to become a volunteer. But also, if a person that is listening today has a situation within a facility or residential care facility that their loved one or they live in or residing in, they can also call that number 1-800-815-0015 and file a complaint or a concern there's a helpline. And then that would get to the regional ombudsman, and then they can do a follow-up on that to help to solve that issue.
Great. Now, when somebody reaches out and calls or goes online and says, yeah, this is for me, I want to get involved, what's that next step? Is there a process that goes? They have to fill out an application, get interviewed?
Definitely.
Okay.
So there's always a person at the helpline that will refer that number. If you leave a message, they'll refer it to me, and it will come to me, and then I'm going to do the follow-up call. And the first part of the process is getting the application material to them, which is an application and a background check. So once we can get that all cleared, then we have to do the conflict of interest, because there's always a conflict of interest clause. Get that cleared, and then we do our training. We like to get 3 or 4 more volunteers in a class together, and then I always have a current volunteer be a part of the class so that they see what's going on. And then from there's we talk to our regional ombudsman, or if there is a facility, a residential care facility that requests and says, if you ever get a volunteer, I'll take one at my facility, then that would be a priority. We would refer that volunteer over there. And we always work with a volunteer that's close to their home, and that's where they want to be, or maybe they don't have a car, then we can place them closer to their home.
Because that's really one of the core missions of this initiative, is to get volunteers and get them into these facilities that are in their community, that they're
Right.
nearby, they're close to,
Right.
that they don't need to figure out how to get to and spend a lot of time traveling to. It's about what's closest to them and getting there and having most of their time being involved in this program at these facilities and helping out.
Yeah, and it's only one. You're assigned one facility, unless the volunteer would request two. But for the most part, it's one facility. Yes, they receive the training. We have a really good training that the volunteer goes through. It's about 7 hours with a lunch that's provided. And basically, the volunteer listens and talks with residents who live in the nursing home or the assisted living. You're the voice for the resident who cannot speak for themselves. That's big, because many people can't. Empower residents to speak up for themselves. We observe general conditions and of the daily activities in the facility. And we meet and talk with newly admitted residents and their families, just so that when we hand out our literature, so that they know what's available for them. We provide the board and aging long-term care material and information to residents and their families, which is what I have here in front of me. We report to the board and aging long-term care. So that's who our state agency is that we report to, and we work out of their guidelines, their policies, and their structured department.
Right. Now, this might be a slightly beyond the scope of what we want to talk about today, but when it comes to the training, is there any continuation that needs to happen?
Oh, that's a great question.
Okay.
We like that question.
All right.
So, yes, we do. Of course, there's always continued communication.
Yeah.
We have a once-a-month coffee clutch. It's a virtual coffee clutch with our volunteers and a regional ombudsman. If a volunteer has a question or a concern during their weekly visits or because of their weekly visits, they can write it down, and we can resolve it or discuss it with whether it's a boundary issue, whether it's a conflict of interest issue, or just they need some help. So it just helps to give the volunteer that direction. So that's an online, and that's an optional. And then once a month we have a coffee, we called it the it was subject matter expert. That's the previous name, but now it's Advocate Academy. And we have speakers that come from the communities and talk on different things related to the aging communities and issues. So yeah, that's an in-service that happens once a month, and it's virtual. So
You're listening to Community Comment here today on 95.3 WBEV. Our guest here on the program is Kim Verstegen. She is the Assisted Living Project Lead with the Board on Aging and Long-Term Care, talking about a program to recruit and train interested volunteers to make weekly visits to an assisted residential care facility in their community, specifically with us today talking about Dodge County. And you mentioned a little bit ago the counties that have been expanding and growing. Now, what counties does this program cover?
well, we are in the state of Wisconsin, 72 counties. So we have a coordinator in La Crosse area, Stevens Point, Madison, Milwaukee, and then the Winnebago, our area, this area. But we cover the northeastern, the central part of the states.
Is it long-term goal plans to continue to look at ways to continue to expand and grow and reach as many areas as possible?
There is a volunteer out there in our communities, or if you have a loved one or a friend or somebody that's interested, please reach out to our 800 line or go to our website, because we need volunteers up in the north woods of Wisconsin. We need them, everywhere. So I don't think anyone would be turned away as long as they met all the criteria. It's really been a great service for our regional ombudsman, because they are being pulled in so many directions. So to have a volunteer and a resident complaint, that we can actually support the advocacy part of the complaint, and then they can help guide or make a visit with the volunteer also.
Now, this may be testing your knowledge, maybe just slightly, but is there a number or how many volunteers you're looking to have at a given county? Or is there like a set number, or is it just
Well,
People,
look around your communities and see how many assisted living or long-term care facilities are around. We'll take a volunteer for every one of those facilities, but that's a pretty big goal. Yeah. So whoever, if you have a heart for this type of thing, if you like working in the aging communities, it's a wonderful opportunity. Plus, like I said, the education it really helps with the education, even utilizing our Medigap helpline. I mean, and we have these people do in-services for us too. And so, we have once a month, so we have a schedule for who's going to speak for we've got that schedule for 2025.
Great.
For education.
Fantastic. What does a facility visit look like for a volunteer?
So basically, once we get the initial visit started, we meet with the administrator. There is a poster within the facility with the volunteer's picture on it. They're usually if there's a resident counselor or the staff will usually introduce the volunteer, and then we make our visit. It's visiting with residents and how are you today, developing that rapport. Administrators usually give us the first tell us about their facility and then from there we go back and make our weekly visit. Very independent. It's based on the volunteer's time. It's not every Tuesday at 10 o'clock. It is however it works for their schedule. It's usually an hour or hour and a half, 2 hours, depending upon the visit.
Yeah, that was essentially covered what my next question was going to be is what do those weekly visits, what does the structure look like in terms of how does it fit into the volunteers' daily schedule, the timing? It all sounds like it's very flexible. People can make it work with their
8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So however it works, and it's any day of the week. Even I've had a volunteer that will go in on a Christmas morning just because they want to say hi. They've developed a relationship and see how things are going. I mean, that is above and beyond, but, there are volunteers that do that because they do enjoy. There's many times people are not really there to hear or see problems. They're really developing relationships. It really helps the facility too because now there's an outside ear that's listening to residents, and we help to solve problems there too. So it's just a nice
dynamic between. Yeah.
I'm sure
nice
bridge.
I'm sure that the residents there like having somebody that they feel like they can open up to at times and be able to share
Trust.
things. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
And
absolutely.
that person's showing up, and our volunteers, our retention is very good. So they stay there longer than many staff. So they're always there. So they get to know each other.
That's great. That's fantastic. Now, when it comes to these weekly visits for these volunteers, is there some sort of report that needs to be done or communication with the...
You asked the right questions. So yes, there is. There's a monthly report.
Okay.
So we give our volunteers a supply of material, of writing material, a pen, and anything that they need for their weekly visits. And they will go in and then they can jot down if there's a comment or if there's a situation, how many residents they visited, the time that they were there, keeping data. And then if there is something significant that they want to report back on, they can put that on that report. Then they send it in by the 10th of every month.
Okay, sounds good.
And some can be scanning. It can be from U.S. Postal Service, but we're becoming much more electronic these days. So
not many handwritten reports, all online computers. So there's a bit. I'm sure that's part of the training. I'm sure you walk through how to get those things done, and for people who
I have volunteers though that are in their 80s that they do not do that. So we give them an envelope and they can write it all out.
Oh, fantastic! So there's still ways to make it work for those who want to be involved in that capacity.
Yes.
Fantastic. Right. Now, Kim, how does this volunteer experience unique compared to other volunteer opportunities?
Well, all volunteering is essential within life. I mean, I've been a volunteer coordinator. I will be, in my retirement years, become a volunteer also. So what I really have found, I've been a volunteer coordinator in many different capacities. This agency is just the warm hearts and to know what a difference we're making in the life. I'll walk into a facility and say, I wonder whose life I'm going to help today. And I'll come out and feel like, oh, well, we really made a difference in that person's life today. And it might be the gentleman that's sitting with the putter and golfing and observing and talking to him about his life as a golfer, or the stories that you get to hear, that about where people's lives have been. I've heard very interesting stories about people's lives. So,
awesome.
and when you're building that rapport and that trust, that's when we can do the advocate. Then they'll say, I did have a situation I wanted to talk to somebody about. And then they can, and we're trusted then. And our administrators and our facility staff are always grateful also. I've not had a bad experience with that.
Okay. That's awesome to hear. And when it comes to the Board on Aging and long-term care, what other agency programs are within that agency?
So what I had mentioned earlier, so we have the resident rights, the ombudsman program. So we work, these two programs within the agency, the volunteer program and the regional ombudsman, we work together very closely with our development of supporting our regional ombudsman, our volunteers do. So these two are, like I said, we have the 800 line for both of them. And then we have the Medigap helpline, which is for insurance. It's for the guidelines for anybody that has like open enrollment and they have questions about their insurance, or maybe they've paid long-term care insurance for the last 30 years and it's getting pricier. They can call the 1-800-242-1060 number, and that will get you information from our Medigap helpline. And again, all of this information is on our website, longtermcare.wisconsin.gov. So that's all part of what you can click the link, and that will take you on your journey through the State of Wisconsin Board on Aging Long-Term Care.
Fantastic. Now, we only have a few more moments here on our program this afternoon with Kim Verstegen here talking about the assisted living, who is the assisted living project lead for the Board on Aging and Long-Term Care. With that time, Kim, I want to make sure that we share one last time just how people can find out more, get involved with this program, and be a volunteer at their local assisted living facilities.
Thanks, Kevin. Yes, again, please, 1-800-815-0015 is our line that you can call. And for the Medigap, if you have an insurance issue, 1-800-242-1060. But you can go online to longtermcare.wisconsin.gov, and that will take you into our website, and that will help. Get some information out.
Fantastic. Kim, I want to give you the final word today. You've done a great job explaining everything that goes on with this program and how important it is to get involved, but just summarize this all for us for those out there listening or watching who are not sure if they want to set the time aside to do this. Why is it an important volunteer opportunity for them to get involved with and help out in this capacity?
Well, volunteer is, if you have you have to have the personality and the character, and you have to like people and older adults. And you have to be compassionate for that population of people. It's a great experience. The volunteers that I have, I wish I had a volunteer with me right now. They could tell you a little bit more about what it does for their life and how it helps them in their service. If somebody wants to have service in their life, that can be part of your service. And it's not a big commitment, but it makes a big difference.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank our guest here again on Community Comment this afternoon. Joining us here on the program this afternoon is the Assisted Living Project lead, Kim Verstegen, with the Board on Aging and Long-Term Care. Kim, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much, and it was a pleasure to meet your audience.
Thank you very much. And that will do it for today's Community Comment.